I'm literally recording this video, while the other one's uploading. So, this is part 2, or this is where I'm at now. I didn't want to call one. I don't know what I'm going to do, if I'm going to call one of them part 1 and this one part 2. It doesn't matter. Let me just get to the point, because I could talk for hours and say nothing. We've already established that. So, July 31st, 2021. Today marks me completing my 53rd trip around the sun. I exit a devil year and enter a tower year. I have to pause here just for a moment to say, I didn't think much of the devil year. Like last year, I thought, oh yeah, devil year, haha, pretty funny, I thought it was going to be all about indulging and, all that stuff about the devil that, is in the more mundane or banal tarot books. Turned out to be a little bit more than that. It turned out to be not as. It turned out there was some external excess, as hence the subject of this video. There was external excess, but it was more dealing with the aftermath of external excess, or the aftermath of excess, both in many aspects of my life. But today we're going to talk about tarot and oracle decks. I have points. This is going to be completely out of order, and my last video, I tried to give you a little bit of context so you know where we're at, like where I'm coming from. But my notes are just as stuff popped in my head as I was thinking about it, what I wanted to talk about. So here we are. Number 1. The main reason I'm recording this video and I'm putting it out there is I want to provide support, at least in video form, to those of you who are going through deck overwhelm. Looking at, like deck overwhelm, the overspending, the overcollecting, the not being comfortable with it. I'm only going to say this once. And then after that, it's assumed that if this is not about you and this doesn't, you shouldn't even be watching this. All right? This is not about people who don't care. They have a disposable income. They buy whatever they want. They throw it on a shelf. They forget about it. They don't care. I'm not that person. Everything I own serves a purpose. For me, tarot decks are tools that I use specifically to see beyond the mundane, to communicate with spirits, to help guide people, to communicate with spirits, and like I already said that. Anyway, to divine multiple futures. I shouldn't even have to explain myself, because there are those of you on the other side of the screen who have made up your mind, and you think that I tell people that they have one future and all that. You know what I mean? It's like you believe whatever the hell you want to believe. You don't know me. I use the cards to help people see what all the possibilities are, all the possible futures, all the possible outcomes of their actions. To me, these have meaning. To me, I wouldn't go as far as calling them a spiritual tool, but they kind of are. They fall into that realm. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is that I'm not all about. I found myself surrounded with hundreds of decks, and hundreds have passed through my hands in the last 2 years. It's appalling. It's sickening. It's nauseating to me. Let me make a note, because I do want to say at the end, because someone's going to want to know. So I came onto YouTube and I talked about how I had deck overwhelm, and I did this in multiple videos. And here's what happened. The first time I brought up deck overwhelm and missing having that tight relationship with one deck, this is not a community. I don't know where to stick this. I'm going to stick it here. Tarot tube, whatever we call it, this is not a community. And if it is a community, then I'm outside the community, and I really am grateful that I'm outside that community, that I'm not part of that community. But at the time, perhaps I was perceived as being in the community because I did notice a shift. Suddenly, certain entities began to circle their wagons because I guess I was threatening to their content or threatening to their persona, threatening to their freebies, whatever the fuck it is. I was just threatening to them because I was talking about the taboo subject of, I'm not a collector. What the fuck am I doing? I even went as far as being apologetic and saying to, saying on video that, if you're a collector and whatever, it's like, I really, it's not about you and I'm not judging you and all this stuff. Why did I even have to say all that shit? I wasn't even talking about them. I was talking about me and my own experience. This is what I want you to get from my video. You are having your own experience. All right? Other people shouldn't make you feel shame, guilt, whatever. You shouldn't feel that you're going to lose friends because you're no longer a follower. Okay? Because I'm going to tell you right now, off the top of my head, there's at least 20 people who cut contact with me that were part of the community. And it's obvious, right? They stop commenting on your videos. They stop, sending you messages. They unfriend you in other social media, whatever the case is. I count off the top of my head, literally 20 entities, members of the community who just cut contact with me. It's like, oh my God, they circle their wagons, and it's like, I'm fucking evil because I'm talking about the taboo subject of overconsumption. Let me tell you what it looked like for me. And then I'm going to tell you why. But I want to, before I forget this thought, I want to say one thing. I'm in a position where I'm observing people who publicly are trying to keep up with the Joneses who really shouldn't be. And this pains me. You don't need the latest, greatest tarot deck. You don't need to help the next Kickstarter. You don't need to. I've heard all kinds of things where people feel that they need to support people in the community and creators and stuff like that. And it's like, if you need to meet your rent, that comes first. For me, there's no two ways about it. You need to be looking after your own best interests first. And let me tell you something, these shits, and I'm going to call them that, and although I love them, and I'm just using this as an example because it's what I have in front of me. These don't give you meaning. And if you need to be spending money, it doesn't matter what the niche is, what the hobby is. If you need to be spending money to be part of a group, you need to think long and hard if you really want to be part of that group. Because if you're only part of a group as long as you're opening your wallet, if people only love you or treat you or like your posts on Instagram because you're buying all their shit, see how fast they're your friend the second you close your wallet. So whether it's Instagram, YouTube, wherever, do that experiment. Then come back and watch my video again. See how long you're part of the community. See how long you're a superstar. See how fast those likes go away. See how fast people stop kissing your butt because you close your wallet. Number one. So I'm faced with hundreds of decks. And I have to say, at that moment, I talked about the noise. They just made noise on my shelf. It was noisy. It was, the noise was debilitating. Because to me, every deck is literally like a phone to pick up to reach spirit. But also there was the visual clutter, the noise. Then there's all those feelings about, why did I buy that thing? I hate that thing. I talked about FOMO, fantasy self. I don't know if I even ever brought up other people's decks. Other people's decks is what I describe when we see something, we see how much somebody loves a deck. It doesn't matter what it is, a cup or whatever. And it's a shared experience to buy the same object that they love. And it doesn't last for us because we don't love it the way they do. We bought it to have the shared experience with them. And that's like maybe it's like a 5-minute charge when you first get it. And then it subsides. So you're watching this right now and you're surrounded by all these decks. Or you've already started the process of culling them. I'm going to tell you how I started. It was many trips to the river, my friends. Multiple culls. Multiple days and nights of sitting with these objects, revisiting emotions of why I purchased them, the money spent. What do they mean? Why can't I let them go? And I discussed this too in videos on and off, but then I just stopped talking about it because, well, you know, after a while, you figure nobody's interested, right? Anyway, that's why I'm here today, because obviously there is an interest. I've been getting quite a bit of mail. All right. Multiple calls. It took multiple visits of the collection. You start with the easy ones. You know what I mean? I started with the easy ones. The ones I got and never used. Literally, when they came in the mail, opened them, did a flip through, sometimes even did a video flip through, put them away, never looked at them again. All those were the first ones to go. And you keep going back to the river to wash yourself clean. I kept going back. I likened it also to those of you who are parents. If your kids ever got lice at daycare, nursery school, grade school, it was like combing for lice. It was just revisiting every day, combing for lice, picking nits off the shelf, and putting them in boxes. Rehoming these decks proved to be even worse. One, you have to have time, patience, customer service skills, or even an interest in posting these things for sale. And when you post them for sale, you're taking a loss, but at least you recoup some money. So if you're one of those people that can do it, have at her. Put them up for sale. Don't put them up for sale for what they cost retail. No one is going to pay you the retail cost of something back when they could just go and buy it for themselves and not pay shipping. Like if you're doing it. I'm doing this out of love, people. It's because sometimes I see listings and I'm thinking, and especially Canadians are notorious for this. No. You want to move the merchandise, price it fairly, so you can recoup some of your money. And if you could recoup 50% of your money, you're doing all right. Multiple calls. What did I do? I got to tell you, I gave most of them away. I gave them away to other people that were interested in tarot. Some I sold, but very few I sold. Most of them I gave away. And when the same ones I gave away came back a couple of times, they went to charity. I just needed them gone. And That's another thing too. This whole fallacy about you buy all these decks, they're going to increase in price. The market is so oversaturated. Okay? I'm going to tell you something right now. If you have decks that you spent a lot of money on, I'm sorry, maybe try to sell them off right away, like right now, today. Get to it. Because like every fad, and this is what it is. A lot of people got into the whole tarot thing. My friend likens it to Beanie Babies. Same kind of thing, right? The market is oversaturated, both with indie and mass market. There's only so many tarot decks people could buy. And now when I see the listings on eBay, go look for yourself. You don't have to take my word for it. But it used to be one tarot deck would be listed, someone trying to clear out their collection. Now they're listing them in lots. They just hope to get them out of their houses and get some money back. So for me, it was multiple trips to the culling, to the decluttering. It was multiple declutterings, multiple calls. And there was also multiple slips. Nobody talks about that. Multiple slips where, oh, I just removed 50 decks from my collection. And, ooh, I just saw something that I really, really resonate with. So there were some multiple slips because sometimes, and this is a slips, these are the usual slips that I saw with my own experience. There's the slip of an impulse purchase. Even though I'm in the headspace, I'm getting rid of stuff or whatever. I have a really bad day, a really stressful day at work or something like that, and I slip and I end up buying something. 2, you're friends with people that have the same interest as you. They send you a text. They say, oh, look at this thing. I just bought it, blah, blah, blah. They're looking for enablers. They're looking for someone to also spend their money on some shit they don't need. You know what I mean? It's like we all do it to each other. Then there's the justifications for slipping. Then there's the the justifications for slipping back into FOMO and fantasy self. Because the justification is, well, I'm self-aware now. So what I'm doing is not harmful to me. I'm going to define harmful. Harmful is when it causes you emotional or mental distress or both and financial hardship. That's harmful. So what really helped during the multiple culls and declutterings was to talk it over with a friend who was going through the same thing. Now, in my experience, I have one dear friend who, we're close and we still talk about it to this day because this is a process, people. When I tell you this is a process, you're not going to declutter and be okay overnight. It's a process. But I also had another friend who I guess was just a tourist going along for the ride. I guess they were just trying something out. So when I stuck to my path of no, discernment, I'm gonna, not buy shit just because people tell me it's cool. I'm not gonna be influenced by other people who are doing flip throughs and reviews of decks they haven't even used, potentially didn't even pay for. No. And of course, because we weren't aligned, the breakdown started there. And that was just one example. Number 2. So fellow travelers, the ones that were your fellow travelers when you were doing the binging and the unboxings and all that stuff. Like I said, they circle the wagons. They make sure, and they don't make eye contact with you, and they stay to their own little group. Man, I'm perfectly okay with that. I'm a lone wolf. I don't give a shit. I do my own thing. I always have been that way, so it's not like I had to learn a new skill. But some of you that are watching are going to have to learn this new skill, and you know what? I'm here for you. If you are going through this, I support you 100%. I'm here to help. Number 2, the next thing, so doing the multiple calls, the decluttering, sitting with decks, trying to figure out, do I love this deck, or is this my fantasy self? An example would be modern tarot decks. My fantasy self is, because I'm an artist at heart, my fantasy self likes sleek, modern decks, but my true self reads traditional tarot. And that's where I find meaning. These sleek decks with their modern art and all that stuff, they ended up just dying on my shelf. Yeah. Basically, they ended up in a box to Value Village, because you know what I discovered? Those indie decks are almost impossible to rehome unless it's to someone within the community, because when you're like me and you reach out to your card reader friends, the ones with experience, they look at you and say, "What the fuck is that? It's stupid. It's unreadable." Sorry. Like I said, this will be very contentious, so I don't care. Press the dislike button. Smash that dislike button. All right. The next thing I did, number 2, it's 20 minutes. It's over 20 minutes. I stopped watching TarotTube. I unsubscribed from everybody. And I unsubscribed probably from everybody, because it was a climate, especially last year at this time, of non-stop unboxings, flip-throughs. Ooh, look at this latest thing. Oh, check out, this latest Kickstarter, that latest, it was literally just a sea of infomercials. I think, Lily, because I think you might be watching. Lily, I think it was you in the comments of one of my videos that you described tarot videos had become like infomercials. Absolutely. Also, suddenly like people, here's what I noticed, and I'm sorry if you see yourself in what I say, well, I started to notice a trend of the channels that always feature a new deck removing how many subscribers they have. Like, you can't see the subscriber count on their channel. And at first I thought, geez, that's so weird. Like, why would you do that? And then I thought, oh, well, if you're reaching out to publishers, you could tell them you have a huge following, and they'll believe you. And because, they want to send free stuff for you to post on your channel that you have a huge following of. That's one reason I think people remove the number of subscribers on their channels. 2, I noticed suddenly, it happened all at once. No one was divulging where the decks came from. No one was committing to saying they bought it with their own money. And no one was committing to saying that the publisher sent it to them and I'm in the biz, people. When a publisher sends you something for review, it's an agreement. It's a gentleman's agreement that you're not going to trash what they sent you, because that would be rude. It's up to you to decide, well, can I give an honest opinion about this? Do I hate it? If you see it's not your aesthetic, like in my case, if I see something's not my aesthetic, and someone would offer it to me, a publisher would offer it to me in exchange for a positive review, I would have to decline if I didn't think I'd give it a positive review. For the record, to this date, no publisher or creator has approached me to review their decks. Obviously not. Okay. I stopped watching because people, one, were hiding how many subscribers they had, and suddenly they were showing a deck every other day. They were showing a deck. Oh, I just received this deck. Very vague. Yeah, we all know. You just received this deck in the mail, in a box, probably full of other decks from the publisher. Especially when you're featuring the same publisher's decks and they're just brand new releases. One thing I promise in my videos, I will always say this was purchased with my own money. This was given as a gift to me by a friend or whatever. All right. So I stopped watching TarotTube because you know what? The infomercials were just, they weren't good for me. They weren't helping me on my path to rid myself of this massive accumulation of decks. And the slips sometimes occurred. They occurred in conversation with friends even, you know what I mean? It's like I would slip because I'd be talking to a friend who just got a deck and they were excited about it, and I looked at it and I thought, okay, and then I'd get it and it was like it ended up in the box the same week. The decluttering box. I stopped watching TarotTube. And then one day I had a conversation with my fellow traveler on this journey. And I can't remember which one of us said it, but we were both thinking it at the same time. It's almost like we're under a spell. And I was under its thrall. I was under the TarotTube thrall. I was under the tarot industry thrall. I was under the thrall of being part of a group of like-minded, so I thought, like-minded people. Same interests, right? And by stepping away from the content, from the constant input, subliminal and not so subliminal messaging, the influencers, once I was no longer part of the community, I was able to see all those videos for what they were, infomercials. I was able to see that all those videos were about the decks, the card stock. Kaminga, just last week I was talking about card stocks become like absolutely ridiculous. It's either plywood or linoleum tile. Sometimes it's plywood and it's covered in velvet that you can't even shuffle those things, because that's what I consider that rubberized rose petal. How romantic. Rose petal. Rose petal. It's rubberized. It's annoying. I'm going off topic. But the spell was broken. And that was 6 months in. At least 6 months in. The spell was broken. I looked at the decks, tarot and oracle, that I had not cleared out yet, and saw that there was a spell on them. And I think it was Lily that also, again, you Lily, that said, yeah, the spell of marketing and hype, and you know, the hype machine. But then, as I was talking about overwhelm and decluttering and culling, I never did a decluttering video. But you know what I started to see? And you started to see it too. Decluttering in the title of videos is fucking clickbait. Oh my gosh. When I saw that, it was like, of course. So people would be posting decluttering videos, and you'd watch this whole 40-minute video, and they like, out of like the 30, 40 decks they showed you of that category of decks they had, they would, oh, I think I'm going to, I have 2 in the maybe pile and 1 I'm decluttering. Clickbait. All right? I'm sorry. I joked with my friend. I said, you know what? If I did even my husband, I joked with my husband and my friend. I said, that's just clickbait bullshit. If I did a decluttering video, you would see a pile of decks on my dining room table and me just sliding them off and into a box, taping up the box and putting it in my trunk to deliver to Value Village or whatever. Clickbait. Decluttering as a word for clickbait. And there's other communities that do this too. There's other special interest groups that do this too, right? Decluttering took off as a lifestyle choice in 2020 because people were trapped at home and they got to sit in their clutter and decided, well, I'm going to declutter because I'm home. Decluttering as clickbait, that is low, especially in this in the tarot sphere. And then there was the hate. So you had the people that weren't really decluttering, but using the word decluttering for clickbait. And then you had the people who were coming on and they were sincerely bearing their soul and sharing their experience of their deck overwhelm and how they lost control and all this stuff. And the people with decluttering as clickbait got all the love in the comment section. The people that talked about the real issues and how they were struggling, how it affected their mental health and their financial health and all this stuff, half their comments were fucking hate comments. You people are all full of shit that you do that to someone. Because what? You're still like sucking the kneecaps of the people that are using words like decluttering and cull and deck overwhelm as clickbait, but the people that were coming on and bearing their soul and being real, some of those comments were just appalling. And I watched as the so-called community circled their wagons and excluded these people and alienated them. There was one person who dared on a Facebook group, posed the question. It was probably maybe it was rhetorical. It doesn't matter. There was someone who had the audacity to post the question, do you ever feel overwhelmed by the number of decks you purchased? And members of that group dogpiled this person and freaking ostracized them. I saw this happen no less than 5 times. Okay, I went on a tangent, people, but I'm very passionate about this because I've been holding back. Decluttering and deck overwhelm as clickbait. Curating my collection as clickbait. At least be true to who you are. Number 3. What happened to me in this whole process of culling and decluttering and all this stuff and just getting rid of all those decks is that Mistress Ray, she said something in one of her videos where for her, she had moments where she just received the deck and then needed to put it up for sale or get rid of it right away to release the guilt and the shame. Yeah. This whole getting rid of decks turned into all kinds of my friend, she called it like it's a stress release valve, because I found myself needing to declutter something because I needed to de-stress and I needed to let go, and whether it's shame, guilt, whatever it is. So that's a real thing. I went through it. I sense it when it's about to happen again. I'm getting better at it, but I succumbed to it a few times, which is why I rehomed I rehomed quite a number of decks that I then regretted rehoming, and I've since replaced them. Again, I can't stress this enough. When you're going through something like this, you need a traveling companion. And if you don't know anybody who gets it, I do. I'm here. You know how to reach me. Okay, I'm a little hard I'm a little hard with the emails. It's like I still owe people email readings because my time is so, and I'm like, whatever. I'm so sorry. But know that I'm here, even if you need to just reach out to me. Know that I'm with you in spirit. Number 5, Instagram. I stopped following tons of people on Instagram. I even muted a whole bunch of them too. Why? Because Instagram is the fakest of the fake. Instagram is where people get to invent what their aesthetic is, and they put it up there so everybody feels bad. Like if you're looking through Instagram and you feel bad that you don't have 40 kinds of oils and 70 different decks on the same subject, and you don't have the latest high-end whatever to practice your craft. That too is bullshit. People posting decks on it. There's people who collected a ton of decks, and to their credit, are using them as Instagram content because they have them now. And they're putting them to good use. That I respect 100%. But the people that are just posting the latest deck, oh, look what I've just bought, and they're just boosting sales for somebody because they didn't just get it. It was given to them because they have X number of followers. They put it on their Instagram and it sells decks, right? And that's fine. But this is not what my video is about. My video is about supporting you through my experience of how to get out of the thrall, to break that spell that's over you. Number 6, aesthetic. So, FOMO, fantasy self, and all that bullshit. Well, the indie decks are, there's a whole market of indie decks because they cater to aesthetics. I'm a card reader. I gotta tell you, I have kept 1. Wait, let me double check. 2. 3. And I'm gonna throw one in just in case I missed one. 4. I kept 4 indie decks. When I first came on the scene with my channel, I had no indie decks and no interest. They're too expensive. Especially if you live in Canada, they're too expensive to buy something that it's quite an investment. And and my experience with indie decks were Tarot of Delphi that a friend of mine had gifted me for my birthday years ago, and I didn't even know there was such a thing as indie decks at the time. Fucking thing was unreadable, and I gave it away. So already I came onto the YouTube scene not giving a shit about indie decks. Now when I say I don't give a shit about indie decks, I say this as a consumer, okay? As a consumer. And as a culture, I don't give a shit about indie decks. The ones I kept are brilliant, are absolutely brilliant. And I'll probably, at some point, do a video where I share the indie decks I kept. The vast majority of them that are garbage. They were garbage. I had to move. I had to get rid of them. And I couldn't even give them away. Imagine. I passed them on to other card readers. They would end up coming back to me, and then I would have to donate them to Value Village. All right? They cater to an aesthetic. And here I did make notes about something I wanted to say about aesthetics, because this is true in the tarot sphere. This is true in the witchcraft sphere. Some people, aesthetics come first. Okay, you follow me? The aesthetics come first. They see something, ooh, this is witchy or whatever. The aesthetics come first, and they look for aesthetics, and aesthetics informs their practice or lack thereof, because usually if aesthetics comes first, once they've established the aesthetics, they often don't work on the practice. For others, such as myself, my practice, I know who I am, and my practice informs my aesthetic. And there's other people like me out there. If you're watching, potentially you're just like that too. Number 7, honest reviews. Here's another reason why I stopped. Okay, so I stopped purchasing decks. At a certain point, I stopped slipping, and when I stopped slipping and I started sitting with all these decks I accumulated. Why did I purchase this thing? Is this me? And it looks like it would be my interest. Santos and Signs is an example right there, right? But it's not. That thing was unusable. I already did a video on it. Look it up. And honest reviews. Well, there's none. There's none. I looked. There's no honest reviews. Because the people who are doing the reviews, okay, no, I lied. There's some long time, like I'm talking old channels that are at least 10 years old, that are pretty serious, and they will talk about a deck and they'll do an honest review. But even those channels, I started to catch them in their lies. Because nobody, sometimes, you like a deck for about a season, for a reason, and sometimes you like a deck for a lifetime. They're like people. And I started to catch even the older channels were doing wait a second. Normally this person would say, oh, there are cards in this, there one out of 78 cards, there's like 10 of them I really don't like. And people even stopped saying that. It's like, it's all perfect. It's all awesome. It's all stunning. It's all gorgeous. No, it's not all gorgeous, not all stunning. So honest reviews, forget it. You want if you're, so at this point I've turned the corner and I have discernment. And by going through the whole culling, decluttering, finding out who I am, finding out why I acquired it, why, the decks that I've kept, I love each and every one of them. I'm never at this stage. I have to admit, I am never going to be a 2 or 3 tarot deck person ever again. This has changed me. This experience has changed me. But I'm okay. I'm okay. Here's why I'm okay. 1, there are no honest reviews. Okay. I do honest reviews. But there are no honest reviews out there. Whether you're reading Amazon reviews, whether you're watching someone's channel, whether it's on Instagram, there are no honest reviews. Not about anything really. Not just tarot, but about other things, other products as well, right? It's the culture we live in. I don't know. So a strategy I use when I'm trying to determine what deck I want, if I want to buy a deck, is I don't let the deck ask me if I want to buy it. I look at what I have and think, oh, there's a gap. I have fairy decks. I'll give an example. I have fairy decks, and I have one that has like Victorian style fairies, and I have Brian Froud's fairies, and then I decide, what, I'd like to have a different variety of fairy. I'm looking for a different energy. Then I go looking for it. So I've turned it around. I don't let my monitor, or I don't let the decks tell me, hey, do you want, or ask me, do you want me? I go looking for what it is that I'm feeling a need for. And what's happened with that is that you develop discernment that way. I developed discernment. What's happened is my purchases have gone way down, and I discovered that a lot of what it is I'm looking for doesn't exist, or often turns out to be decks that are mass market that have been around for a very long time that I just never noticed. So honest reviews, no, I let what I'm needing or what I'm craving guide me to go look if such a deck exists. I'm no longer window shopping on Llewellyn or US Games or on TarotTube or on Instagram or on Etsy. Etsy's the devil. I don't go there at all. I didn't have any good. I didn't have many good experiences on Etsy. Is that what I'm trying to say? And I guarantee that I promise, I will always give an honest review. If I say I love something, I really do love it. If I say I like it, I really do like it. If I say something is shit, I'll give you the reasons whether I love it, like it, or I think it's shit. I always promise to tell you why. So some strategies. So where am I now? And I guess I probably should have said at the start of the video, I wanted to record this video and upload it to show those of you who are that are just entering this process, those of you who are in it up to your nipples, those of you who have been in it up to your nipples and you're feeling like it's quicksand. There's light at the end of it. There's light at the end of this tunnel. There's light at the end of this tunnel. Come. Come. Give me your hand. Let me pull you out of the muck. There's light at the end of this tunnel. These are strategies that have helped me. And I wanted to share some of them because some of them for me were really destructive until I realized that no, I need to turn this. I can't. How many? How many for me is destructive? Because I started out as someone with 3 tarot decks and a handful of oracle decks way back in 2017. How many is really inflammatory for me? How many is not a good place? I find this that whenever I'm in a bad place mentally, I start thinking, I'm going to count how many I have, and counting them makes me not in a good place. Cataloging what I own puts me in not a good place. When I see the list of how many and then I start counting them, for me it's not a good place mentally. Everyone has to figure this out on their own. You need to try both in order to figure out where you feel good, right? So I do not keep track of what I have. But since I got rid of all the excess, the FOMO, the fantasy self, other people's decks, whatever you want to call them, what is left, I actually know what I have, even if it's concealed, even if it's in a cupboard, in a drawer. I know which ones I have, and I reach for the ones that I have. And they all make sense. They all fit me. I learned a lot about myself. I learned that I prefer for reading for other people and for reading day to day, I prefer traditional. Thoth for myself, RWS for the public. And then I don't have many tarot decks, but the ones that I do have, the rest of them are animal, fae. And I'm going to throw in oracle too. What are my interests? Animals and nature. Animal spirits, animals and nature. Plants. Fae. Fairies, fae, earth spirits. Yeah. And then decks that or for spell work. And then the other category of decks that I love are myths. So I have Mythic Tarot and other decks, a handful of other decks that are a different world. It's when I want to visit. When the tarot decks that aren't Thoth or RWS are all places, worlds, universes that I enjoy to visit and see if it can help me see the same concepts and archetypes from a different perspective, a different cultural perspective. So not counting. So the upside to that is that it keeps me, for me, it wasn't good. It wasn't good. But you can only find that out for yourself. Cataloging them was not good. Anything, putting them on paper, keeping a ledger or something was not good for me. No. So like you need to see for yourself. Where am I now? My purchasing process. I talked to you a little bit already about the fact that I don't let the decks guide my purchasing. I let if I go to my deck collection, and I'm comfortable now calling it a collection because it is. It's a collection of tools that it's like having a curated collection of tools. If I go and I think, oh, I wish I had, I don't know, a fruit deck. I'm just gonna make something up. And then I think, okay, well, what kind of fruit deck? Like, what would I need this fruit deck to be? Would I need it to be a tarot? Would I need it to be an oracle deck? And then I go from there. So I already start to build in my mind what this thing needs to look like. So when I go looking for what's out there, I already approach it with discernment. And I don't settle for like the first fruit deck or the most popular fruit deck or the first indie fruit deck, or you know what I'm saying? Smash that dislike button, people. I know you want to. Okay. What I watch. So where am I at now with what I watch? Well, those of you who have seen comments under your videos, you know that I watch you. I think it's safer for me to say that I watch when I have time. I'll watch YouTube videos that interest me. There's certain YouTubers that I've continued to follow throughout this whole process because they talk about tarot. They don't talk about decks. And when they're talking about decks, they're still talking about tarot. And the same goes with any kind of metaphysical or witchcraft content. I watch people who talk about concepts, people who talk about being a witch, practicing witchcraft, folk magic, people who share what they're learning. I'm not watching hauls. I'm not watching anti-hauls. I'm not watching deck comparisons. I'm certainly, even though I'm a vintage fanatic, I'm certainly not watching comparing different eras with the same deck over the years or whatever those, because those they lead you to eBay. You know what I mean? It's like, or they lead me to eBay. I think that what I want to impress upon everybody is that I'm not sitting here saying, "Oh, I'm perfect. I'm through this." No, let's go back to number one. It's a process. It's an ongoing process. I constantly have to keep it in check. I'm probably always going to have to keep it in check because if it isn't decks, it bleeds into some other interest. It'll bleed into, I have an interest in perfume. I have amassed quite a collection of perfume. Like I said, it's not so much designer perfume as much as it is vintage and estate sale kind of stuff. But I've amassed a full cabinet, which incidentally my next video is probably going to be on perfume. But what I learned is what I like and what I don't like. I learned what resonates with me. I learned what fits me. And I learned that I can objectively look at a deck and say, oh my God, it's beautiful. And it's unreadable for me. And therefore, I will not go near it. I learned that you have to push through the guilt and the shame. You have to push through the fact that it's a sunk cost now. All these decks you're looking at, it's a sunk cost. Sell what you can, but for me it was emotionally too hard to I just couldn't be in that whole selling thing. To press the release valve, I donated a lot. I just gave it away. You need to find what works for you. Some people, it works for them to sell them in batches, and it provides them closure and a little bit of money back, right? Most channels are not discussing tarot. That's another thing I learned. So, yeah, there's that. So I learned that I'm not just going to settle. There's lots of people that I enjoy who they are. I enjoy, how they speak, and I enjoy their company. But if their content is vapid and just an infomercial, I don't watch. And then there's people that are sharing their collections and their thoughts, and I'm watching them because there's more. There's substance there. What I learned a big lesson, and I'm still learning about guilt, shame, forgiveness. Before I end this video, I need to leave you with something. No matter where you are in this journey, because if you're watching me, you're either hate watching because you're waiting for me to talk about you, or you're on this journey, and oh my gosh, if there's one thing I can impress upon you, you need to forgive yourself. Start there. Whatever you decide to do. If you decide to put them all in the recycling bin, if you decide to donate them all to charity, let it go and forgive yourself. And there's two other things I wanted to talk about before I let you go. There's a huge difference between an influencer and a role model. Find role models. The influencer is telling you need stuff. The role model is never going to tell you need anything. The role model will show you how they use a tool, how they approach it. So know the difference. And lastly, because this would be my first question, watching this kind of video, how many did you keep? How much did you, how many decks do you have? I told you that mentally it wasn't healthy for me to count them. Nor was it healthy for me to catalog them. But at one point I did. And out of the hundreds upon hundreds, and when I say it, it sounds like hyperbole, but it's not, of the decks, tarot and oracle, because I didn't even go near Lenormand, Sibylla, and all that stuff, thank God. By my estimation, I kept less than 10% of all the decks that passed through my hands in 2 years. Less than 10%. And if I were to be brutal about it and try to be really truthful, probably hovering around 7 to 5% is what I kept. I'm not staring at 5 decks on my shelf. I estimate, without counting them, there's at least 50. Do the math. All right. I hope wherever you are in this journey that my video was helpful. Please, in the comments below, feel welcome to share. I will torpedo any comments that are hateful, directed at you, but I want you to feel that this is a safe place for you to share where you're at in your journey, whether it's at the beginning, the middle, the end, how you feel, what your experience is. Forgive yourself. And like I said, feel safe. It's a safe place to comment below. If anybody comes out and, spews hateful shit, I'll torpedo it. Unapologetically. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. I know this was a long one, and I didn't even warn you, but you could see the timestamp. I'm sure you got yourself a beverage, a snack, whatever. Put on your pajamas. And that's it. Forgive yourself and move forward. You can't change the past. You can only change the path the next path you walk on. You can only change your next journey. Thank you so much. Wherever you are in the world, have a beautiful day and many blessings. Bye-bye.